All right, we can continue now. I forwarded a link to our chat box. That link will guide us or lead us to where we are going to have to do some assessments on what we have learned by watching that video. Basically, that video is centered on the need for us to be able to brand our products, as well as the need for us to be able to manage our products. And one thing that I see from the video is that looking at the Coca-Cola brand as a case study, the brand is an household name now. Despite that, the founder of the brand, known as John Pemberton, was by accident an entrepreneur after discovering the formula for the product. At the end of the day, he sold off his product, his brand, at a very cheap amount to Richard Chandler for at the rate of $50, and which is quite ridiculous because he never believed much in that dream. He never believed much in the brand, so he felt there's a need for him to sell it off because he's a pharmacist by profession, and he sold it to Richard Chandler, who is a businessman who knows the worth of the product of the brand. Today, Richard Chandler's family and his generations after him are still making money from Coca-Cola because throughout the world now, the Coca-Cola brand is an household name, and the brand continues to rake in more millions of dollars over each year. This is because the person who bought into the idea of Coca-Cola is a business person and really identifies himself with the brand. He knows what the brand is really worth. So he was able to key into this opportunity that provided itself to him at a very, very cheap rate. He invested $50. At the end of the day, he made millions of dollars from it. Though he went through so many challenges, but he was even selling the products for free. This is why we are saying that at times when you involve yourself in branch management, you need to understand how to really get into the minds or into the hearts of your customers. How can you get into the hearts of your client so that they will keep coming for your products? Now, we talked about, so for us, those of us who have gone through the slide, through the question section and the link I forwarded here, you can try to access ourselves by clicking that link on your chat box there. Click the link on the chat box and attempt the questions that we have there. So this is basically, let me share the questions again with us. Now we have the question here. I am expecting that people will respond to the questions, and you can just go through the link I forwarded to the chat box and respond to the questions that we have there on brand management, looking at the Coca-Cola case. We have here, one is, what is the name of the founder of Coca-Cola? Number two says, Coca-Cola was founded in what year? Who bought Coca-Cola from its owner? How much was the bottle of Coca-Cola sold? So you just have to take your time, and based on what you have watched in the video, you can attempt the questions and let me have your feedback. Now we are moving on from there, and let us go back to our slide proper. So we've talked about the Porter's five forces theory, and I emphasize on the need for us to be able to adopt this theory into our brand management technique. Now, we need to know that rivalry exists in business. There are competitors around who are also fighting for a better share of the business or of the market. So one thing that you need to know is that you should be able to understand the threat of new entrants into the business. You need to understudy the bargaining power of the buyers. You need to understand the bargaining power of the suppliers, the threat of substitute products to your business. And I talked about the threat of new entrants into the business. That is, they can pose a barrier to successful achievement of your own business. Probably they are coming with new ideas. They are coming with enough capital, just like I mentioned earlier in the case of Gokada and Opay, in which Opay was able to outwit Gokada in the Okada hailing business, though eventually the government had to call it off. And these are things that you need to understand. That what are those traits that we are likely to witness in the course of doing business? And also, we need to also understand the essence of what economies of scale. That is, how can you expand? And what are those advantages that you can make from expansion? Because at the end of the day, when you expand, you have the power to be able to command the market. You can also bring about what we call brand loyalty. People can be loyal to your brand for as long as they know that you are consistent with your brand. You are consistent with what you are doing. Not that today you are there, tomorrow you are not there. Customers are looking for products to buy from you. They cannot find you. You are nowhere to be found. Even though there are challenges that we may witness in the line of having to do businesses, we need to know that they are just for the time being. Over the years, by doing it on and on, we are going to get it right. Also, we need to also understand that government policies can also pose a threat. Government policies that may allow new entrants into the business, government policies that may stop one from doing that business are also going to what we put into consideration. So we need to understand this threats to our business so that we can do very well in managing our brands. Another thing is what we call the cost. The cost of doing business is quite high these days, and we all know that. So this cost can discourage one if care is not taken. We just need to find a way out of this issue. So for those who are just joining me, please use the link on the chat box there, please. Use the link that we have here on the chat box. Please kindly go to the link that we have here. Go to the link and attempt the question. I'm going to get your feedback, please. Click on that link and let me have your feedback and attempt the question that we have there for your class, so that if we want to assess you on what you understand by what you have watched in the case study that we presented in this class. Now, we also talked about the threat of substitute products. For example, like we have Coca-Cola and Pepsi. When Coca-Cola, the case study that we used, came into being, so many companies tried to make the same brand of Coca-Cola. We have Sherry Cola, we have Ava Cola, we have so many brands that came on board because they observed that what Coca-Cola was doing very well in that business. The same thing applies to individuals too. When you are into a particular business, when people see that you are doing very well in that business, they will also come with various forms of business ideas. Doing the same thing that you are doing. They will also come around to challenge you in your business, because they want to pose a threat so that you can also have a share market that you have. So all these things are what we need to really understand when we go into business, brand our products too. This threat of substitute products is very, very cognizant of what we need to really take good care of. And we should be ahead of the game. What I mean by being ahead of the game is that we should plan ahead, because one of the best things about brand management is the ability to be able to plan and to strategize. When you plan and strategize, it will go a long way in helping you. It will go a long way in helping you to be able to build your brand and see you move from point A to point B. So this Porter's 5 Points theory is something that you need to understand as you progress in your business. Learn the threat of new entrants to that business, understudy them. Learn the bargaining power of your buyer, because if the buyers have a very high bargaining power, they may cut your business. At the end of the day, we know that the customer is always the king. So he wants to get the product from you at a very low price. Why taking undue advantage of you? So you have to understand the bargaining powers of the buyers. Know the number of customers that you have and your potential customers that you can get at each passing day. Try to know the differences between what you provide and what your competitors also provide. Then understudy the sensitivity of the prices that you have. Now, can they afford your products? Even if you have to reduce the price of the product to the customers, will they still be able to afford it? This is the reason why we say that from what we're asking under this theory, that what are the likely threats to your brand? You need to identify them, and you need to work assiduously on ensuring that you become successful as you progress with your brand. So that at the end of the day, you'll not be doing the business for just doing sake, because it may be frustrating. And now when I say frustrating, it means that at the end of the day, you may decide to leave the business because you no longer have interest in business. Due to the fact that some people were able to outwit you in that business. Next one is what we call the bargaining power of the supplier. When you know your own secret on how to bargain, when you bargain very well, you have better chances of what? Of making more profit on that business compared to what? Having a very low bargaining power. Understand your bargaining power with the suppliers. Those you are buying from. Be able to negotiate with them. Develop a negotiating skill with them. At the end of the day, so that you are going to get a reasonable price. For example, I remember that during this Corona period, I was trying to get face sheet to sell, and with my wife. So eventually, we were able to get the face sheet at a very high price. But to our surprise, the same face sheet is being sold at 350 naira, 500 naira in the market here in Lagos. So because the product is in abundance and people the buyers have a very high bargaining power on the product. That is why people are selling that product at a very cheaper rate. Even though the brand is not the original brand, people still want to go for something that is very cheap. So what I'm saying is that as you as a business person trying to promote your brand, manage your brand, try to ensure that you develop a very high bargaining power so that at the end of the day, the customer will not shortchange you. Also, we need to understand the threat of substitute products. Now, if you observe that a product is doing very well in the market, try as much as possible to diversify, create more new products so that you can compete favorably in the market with other competitors that have various brands. So you need to understand the number of substitutes that are available in the market, the buyer's propensity to substitute products, as well as the relative price of the substitutes. Also, try as much as possible to limit or reduce your cost of purchase. From there, we move on to now. We have what we call the brand risk to return table. I call it the brand risk to return table because as a business person trying to manage your brand, you need to be able to understand on which part of the table your brand falls. Again, you need to be able to understand on which part of the table your brand falls. For example, I've asked the question, on which side of the table is your brand? Now, one thing that needs to come to the back of your mind, you need to understand how you are performing, how your brand is performing in the market. You need to understand it. Is it a very high risk business with high returns? Is it a low risk business with low returns? Is it a low risk business with high returns, or is it a very high return business with high risk? So you should be able to identify on which side of the table your brand falls. If you have a business that you are into that is a very low risk or low return, it is still manageable. Because in business we say that the higher the risk, the higher the return. The higher the amount of money you invest in the business, the higher the likelihood of all you having to make high returns on that business. So we have about 4 columns here on the table. The left-hand side, we have the low risk to low return table. We have the low risk to high return column. We also have the high risk to the low return column on the left-hand side below. On the right-hand side, we have the high return and the high risk column on the table there. Now, let us just do some calculations here so that we can understand what this table really entails. Number one is that here on this table, we have various brands. You are into various brands and you're trying to promote them. So you need to be very, very careful as to how you promote this brand and how you manage them. Because one thing is that for as long as you invest in the business, the reason for investing there is to be able to make good returns at the end of the day. Look at brand A, for example. Brand A has an expenses or risk investment of 100,000 naira on vendor payments. Also, its operational cost is 500,000 naira. And the next one, what we have is what is tax and other expenses, which is a risk to the business. At the end of the day, the total risk investment in this business is about 800,000 naira in brand A. while the sales which serve as a reward to the business was 500,000 naira. Likewise, under investment in relation to brand A was able to accumulate 1 million naira in rewards. This means that what our reward compared to our risk is very high. Meaning at the end of the day, after we have considered the risk that we have invested in the business, as well as what the reward that we have made from the business, we still have a net risk to reward value of 700,000 naira. So this means that what? That despite the high risk that we have involved in A, we're able to make what? We're able to make a very high returns on investment. The same thing applies to brand B. Look at the brand B very well. Brand B incurs a risk of unveiled payment of 10,000 naira and an operational cost of risk on 20,000 naira, as well as expenses on tasks is 10,000 naira. At the end of the day, the total risk incurred by brand B is 40,000 naira, while the total reward is 90,000 naira. We can see that this kind of brand falls under the low risk and the low returns on the table here. On the table that we have here, it means that brand B falls under this particular table here. On the column here, the first column that we have here, low risk and low return. So we have low risk and low returns here, which means that what brand B falls under it because the risk involved in this business is low and the return is very, very low as well. Now, the next one that we're talking about is brand C. Brand C has a very high risk. A very high risk on vendor payment of 1 million naira, an operational cost of 500,000 naira, and also a tax to expenses of 200,000 naira. At the end of the day, on brand C, we're only able to make rewards of about 800,000 naira on sales and investment. This is an indication that brand C is a very high risk business with what? With a low reward. Let's go back to the table and see that for ourselves. We can see that what brand C falls under what? The column below here. This is where brand C falls. Brand C falls here. Brand C falls here because it is what? It's a very high risk business with low returns. So we have to be very careful when we are managing this brand because looking at this alone, we are investing more in this business. At the end of the day, we are getting less. And when you observe this, there's a need for the business owner to re-strategize, to come back and re-strategize and plan on how best he or she can diversify or divert all the resources that are available for brand C towards other brands that are doing quite well, even though with low risk. So let us move on again and check out so like I was saying, the same thing applies to brand D. Brand D is a low risk and a very high return because we can observe that from what we have here, what we have on the table here, at the end of the day, the risk to reward is quite low. Brand D is only able to make brand, please.
Someone soup, sweet, and fish.